Hello, it is April 16th, 2024, and I just completed The Secret Garden by Francis Hodgson Burnett. Hodgson Burnett, I guess I said it wrong. This is volume 4 of the best of children's classics, and previously I had reviewed The Wizard of Oz, Peter Pan, and The Little Prince. I have one more book left in this series, which is A Little Princess. This is number 4, The Secret Garden. And so far, The Little Prince is my favorite, and this is my least favorite. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background information. I'm not going to include too many spoilers, but I'm going to give you the basic premise. So, the basic premise is let's see how I'm just going to go for it. If you don't want to listen to the premise and you're going to read it, then don't listen to it. So this lady has a garden that she tends, and her husband gets distraught and isolated after a branch falls off of one of the trees and kills her. There's also a sick little boy, and he's got a spine disease and some kind of fever thing, I guess, and he's bedridden and he's supposed to die. They've got him under constant care. So this other kid discovers the garden and starts renewing it and really likes it. And finally, talking to the sick kid, tells him, why don't you come out here with me and experience the garden? So it is very long-winded. It is 280 pages, and it kind of repeats the same things over and over and over and over. It's almost as if you're trying to get brainwashed. And some of the things that were, they're thoughts that people wish were true, like the power of positive thinking is all you need to get by with any problem. There's a lot of church groups that are that way, is name it, claim it. That's kind of an old sect of Christianity. Name it, claim it, and it'll just magically happen for you. But anyone that lives in the real world knows that there are real problems that sometimes don't repair themselves and don't get solved, and sometimes they're not intended to be solved, because ultimately God's in charge, can do whatever he wants. And ultimately, again, we're all finite beings. You can't find many people walking around that have survived hundreds of years, except for in Dracula and vampire stories, right, Mama? That my wife loves. Perhaps there's some vampires walking around that have defied the odds. Yeah. But I digress. That is not the case for most of us, if not all of us. And this book portends that the kid really wasn't sick at all. And I'm thinking, well, okay, is there going to be some twist at the end? Is someone poisoning this kid, and his being out in the garden and eating fruit and all that stuff, is that going to be alteration of his existing diet or something? And maybe that's why he's getting better. But nope, it's just the power of positive thinking. And I'm thinking, this was written a long time ago, and it seems like cultic quackery. So I looked it up. Sure enough, here it comes. It's Christian Science. This book was written at the very beginning of Christian Science, which was 1910, same time frame. And that church believes a lot of weird things. For a long time, they didn't let their members, well, I shouldn't say, I'm not a member of this church, so disclaimer, this is just what I understand offhand. Maybe they didn't forbid blood transfusions and medical treatment, but they tried to avoid it, I would say, if possible. They believe that we basically live in a spiritual world and the body's just riding along, and that you can basically get rid of all your problems by thinking positive all the time. And that's the essence of this book. And it's, I've seen throughout my lifetime, there's a lot of people that maintained some positivity when they were sick and didn't get through it. So it's not very realistic. It's possibly cultic, and I don't really understand how it's labeled as a children's book. It's more, like I said, propaganda. So the back of the book, here's a quote. I'm sure there's magic in everything, only we have not sense enough to get hold of it and make it do things for us. And they compared the power of positive thinking to electricity and scientific things that do good for us. And I'm not saying that positive thinking is not a good thing. It obviously is, can help people physically too, which, it's suggesting that. But the part that's kind of ridiculous is if the kid truly had a spine problem and was bedridden, the only solution to the solving of that was perhaps he was misdiagnosed by a quack doctor, or the problem wasn't as bad as they believed it was. And of course, this is not based on a true story. I looked it up. So it's science fiction, I guess is what they would refer to it as. But I don't believe it's a children's book. I think it's more a propaganda tool, and I don't like it. I think it's long-winded, a lot of repetitive. Think about garden and flowers. I garden all the time. I love my garden and flowers, but never do I walk out there thinking that looking at my garden and flowers a few hours is going to solve all my problems. So yeah, that would be great if it did. I think everybody would have a garden in their backyard. But anyway, this book, my least favorite of the four. I have A Little Princess coming up next. I'm still concurrently reading Dickens' Pickwick Papers, which is a pretty strange book, but it's not terrible. So I'm mowing along in a very long Pickwick Papers, and I'll be side by side reading the last of children's classics, A Little Princess, and that will be volume 5, probably in a couple of weeks, I guess. Let's see how many pages this one is. 244. So this one's shorter. There's no pictures in this one. There was an occasional picture in the other book. The font style seems about the same. So yeah, probably a couple of weeks I'll be done with A Little Princess and the end of this collection.